Momoshiki could actually be Shibai the Otsutsuki God, and there are a number of hints which back this argument, like Boruto never inheriting the powers of the host Otsutsuki, such as the golden rinnegan, which is pretty unusual for a Kama vessel. The name Shibai means play or drama in Japanese, which implies that he could be playing the role of Momoshiki to deceive Boruto. The resemblance of the horn, the placement of the Jougan eye, and the similarity of the Uzuhiko ability are too subtle to ignore. Momoshiki having knowledge of the past is also suspicious. The way he healed Boruto's organs to revive him looks like a godly feat that only someone like Shibai could have performed, and so on. In a nutshell, the Momoshiki who invaded the planet and the spirit who returned to give Boruto the Kama could be completely different entities, with the first one being the monster who had his own plans and goals, while the other being the god Otsutsuki who is using the first one as a mask to fulfill his true goals. And since Momoshiki has been absent from the story for over 22 chapters, this theory has again started to make a lot more sense. So get ready to get your mind blown with all the new discoveries that I have made to prove that Momoshiki is indeed Shibai. It all starts with the simple fact that we are yet to see the host Otsutsuki of Boruto in the time skip part of the story. The last time he appeared, it was him ranting about how his vessel doesn't allow him to take over, even after getting his identity replaced with a criminal, which in his words is the equivalent of losing everything. The only mention of Momoshiki in Blue Vortex comes from chapter 15, where Boruto mentioned that it was the core fight when he felt something similar to the sensation of getting possessed by Momoshiki. He describes it as a feeling where he stopped being himself and started dying while still conscious and aware. But when we mix the Shibai angle into this, things seem to get a lot more interesting. First off, in chapter 13, Jura revealed that some divine intervention is preventing Boruto's death, and we don't know exactly what it is. The most common assumption is Shibai Otsutsuki, who is trying to keep him alive for some reasons. And if you remember the words of Spirit Momoshiki from chapter 72, he also wanted to keep Boruto alive by any way possible. Now, before I go further into how this unexplained possession from the core fight is a direct hint for Momoshiki being Shibai, let me get over some more hints which provide some clarity to their connection. Basically, the normal Momoshiki never touched Boruto, which means he technically couldn't have given him the Kama. The one who actually implanted him with the Kama was Spirit Momoshiki, and the reason it's so unusual is because it shouldn't be possible for the spirit of an Otsutsuki to come back from death and implant the Kama, cause if that was the case, then Ishiki would have easily implanted Kawaki with the new seal after his death. We even saw his spirit coming back to leave a message for codes. So what was stopping the same spirit to give Kawaki the Kama? This yet again proves that something fishy was going on with Momoshiki's spirit, who could actually be Shibai, the god of deception. Furthermore, the visual depiction of Kawaki getting Ishiki's Kama and the Otsutsuki spirit holding Boruto's hand for Kama implantation is totally different as well. Kawaki's shadow clone did get the Kama seal of Ishiki, but Boruto did not show any visual presentation of the Kama surfacing his arm. In the anime, Toneri said soon the gods would descend upon this land, and if he was talking about Momoshiki and Kinshiki, then there was literally no reason for him to call them gods, since they are also Otsutsuki just like him. The fact that the Jougan could have something to do with Shibai, and Toneri being the messenger who informed Boruto about this power, makes everything more apparent. When Toneri mentioned gods, he could be talking about Shibai who would disguise as Momoshiki to become a part of Boruto's consciousness. The Otsutsuki form of Boruto acts as the biggest hint to this theory, cause he looks more like Shibai than Momoshiki here, which means whenever he gets taken over, Shibai is unable to manifest his fake form through the body of Boruto. This explains why he grows a similar horn. It's all because of the limitations of deception. So now coming back to the two blue vortex theory, take a look at how Boruto says he felt something similar to Momoshiki's possession back in the core fight. He used the word similar to compare that feeling to the time when Momoshiki used to take him over. This doesn't necessarily mean that he was taken over by the monster, and I have some strong evidence to back this up. There are some inconsistencies in the narrative when it comes to the emergence of Momoshiki during the core fight. First off, Boruto did not explicitly mention that the Otsutsuki had taken over his body. He just revealed that it was a feeling which was kinda similar, something that made him feel dead and alive at the same time. Also, during that spectacle moment, he wasn't him, which means his body was in control of some other entity. Now this is where it gets interesting. Boruto revealed to Kawaki that this lifeless sensation was an outcome of him activating the Kama seal against Code. And looking at the flashback from chapter 5, Sasuke rushed to attack Code and his grime, and then we get to see a panel where most of the grimes are dead and Sasuke has been turned into a tree. So using this revelation of Boruto from chapter 15 as basis, the Kama incident must have taken place between these two sequences. In simple words, Boruto activated the Kama after seeing Sasuke was in a dire situation, and this must be the moment when Momoshiki took over to take care of Code and and the grimes. Followed by this, when Boruto regained consciousness, he must have noticed that most of the grimes are dead. Sasuke is now a tree and Code is nowhere to be found. Well, it might have made perfect sense, but then we have the single statement of Code from the second chapter, which makes everything a lot more complicated. He reminds Boruto of their first clash, asking if he's already forgotten the time when he fled without doing anything. So as you can see, some things really don't add up here. If what Boruto said to Kawaki is true, then Code should have remembered the emergence of Momoshiki too. And it's not like he was witnessing his takeover for the first time. He had already seen the monster appear 3 years ago, meaning he should have some idea of what happens to Boruto's body when he gets taken over. If not even that, then there should have been a fight between him and Boruto, who was under the control of Momoshiki. But instead, what he remembers is that Boruto ran away without even laying a finger on him. So did Momoshiki simply take over Boruto just to escape from the battlefield because he was afraid of Code? And if that's true, then what did he do in the meantime with Boruto's body? He could have went to Konoha to take his revenge, or even worse, he had the perfect chance to kill Sasuke that he didn't take. Well, none of these things look like something that the Momoshiki we know would have done. So what exactly was this sensation that Boruto felt after activating the Kama, and why don't the things add up if the Otsutsuki had actually taken him over? So now let's move on to the Shibai angle of this incident, and if you find it reasonable, make sure to hit that subscribe button. First off, the sensation that Boruto had after activating the Kama could be none other than the Jougan's awakening. That's right. The reason it was similar but not the same as the usual takeover of the Otsutsuki could be because the spirit is now showing his true colors. The reason Shibai Otsutsuki stopped playing the game of deception is because back in chapter 80, Boruto won the biggest challenge that the Otsutsuki God had set him up for. If you remember what acted as the final trigger to Omnipotence, it was actually Momoshiki who took over Boruto's body for a while and then helped Kawaki escape from Konoha. And unlike popular belief, this wasn't something that was done by the Otsutsuki to gain the full control of the vessel's body. Rather, it was the final test of Shibai Otsutsuki, who was measuring the endurance capacity of Boruto. A huge hint to back this up comes from the visions of Kashin Koji. Have you wondered why there's literally no mention of Momoshiki or a possible future where he had taken over? Like when he mentioned the future where Boruto and Sarada died, or even the time when Kawaki got fed to the Ten Tails in every possible outcome. Don't you think Momoshiki should have won in at least one of the timelines? Almost the entirety of part 1 went by him screaming about his master plan to take over Boruto after he loses everything. But even though the present timeline twisted the events in a way that his prophecy failed, don't you think Koji should have talked about the future in which the Otsutsuki had actually won? The fact that there was neither any such future nor the acknowledgement of Momoshiki's upcoming emergence from Koji's side only means one thing. It's not Momoshiki but actually Shibai, whose plan was never to take over Boruto. Instead, it was to make him a capable warrior. Now coming back to what actually happened during the core fight. For some reasons, Shibai needed Ko to remain alive, probably because of his role to awaken the living god trees. So when the fake Momoshiki, or let's say Shibai, took over the body of Boruto, an incident which made him feel alive and dead at the same time. The reason it was similar to the usual takeovers is because the consciousness of the vessel gets suppressed when they get overpowered by the host Otsutsuki, and the reason Boruto felt dead as well as conscious at the same time could be because Shibai had unveiled his mask to keep the vessel safe till the core threat was over. He had no need to pretend like Momoshiki when the whole reason for why he was playing his role was already over. The Jougan being the key to connect all the dots here makes absolute sense too. It was active when Momoshiki's spirit first encountered Boruto in the chakra realm, and if you think about it, it did not activate against Ishiki even though he was an Otsutsuki too. The anime fight with real Momoshiki did show the Jougan activate once or twice, especially during the final blow. Now here is something that you will find interesting. Since the Jougan kept on appearing in Boruto's eye when he was fighting the real Momoshiki, don't you think it would mean that he was no different than the spirit one and they are the same beings? Well, here is why I think the Jougan got several activations even before Shibai Otsutsuki appeared in front of Boruto in Momoshiki's form. The answer can be found in the manga, which doesn't include the sequence with the chakra dimension and the Jougan, likely because the authors at this point had not figured out the entire divine plot, as confirmed by the animator Cheng Si-Huan. Now if you look at Boruto in this chapter after Momoshiki was gone, you can see him looking towards the spot where he previously destroyed Momoshiki with the giant Rasengan. Suddenly he hears a voice, and when he looks around, it's Momoshiki sitting on a hill-like structure. He did not appear from the same side where he was defeated, and this only means one thing. Shibai Otsutsuki was looking at Boruto the entire time during his battle with the real Momoshiki, and that's actually the reason behind his Jougan activation when he landed the final blow. His Jougan was sensing the presence of Shibai, who was looking at him from the other side. And once Momoshiki ceased to exist, Shibai stole his identity to test Boruto with some trials. This premature activation of the pure eye could also be a realization of what Toneri meant by the gods descending on the lands. Not to mention, the imposter also referred to himself as a god, which kinda makes it a bit complex, as him referring to himself as a god solidifies the Shibai theory. But on the other hand, Boruto did not actually defeat this god, which is Shibai in disguise. It was the real Momoshiki whom he defeated. So does this disprove the likelihood of our theory coming true? Well, not really, cause if it's actually Shibai, then he must have the perfected power of prescience, which means when he says that those who defeat gods cannot remain ordinary individuals, he could be talking about a future in which he has already killed another Otsutsuki god, something that Shibai himself couldn't do. If you remember what Urashiki said to Toneri, it was a law in the Otsutsuki clan to not kill the other members, so the same must apply to their gods as well, which could be what Shibai was scheming the entire time. We have already seen the missing sigils and the mention of Otsutsuki gods changing the history of humanity in the past, so it should make sense for Shibai to choose and guide Boruto just to accomplish something that he couldn't fulfill at his own, and that is the extermination of an evil Otsutsuki god, the ultimate destiny of the Jougan wielder. It's not a headcanon sort of idea, as it actually has some strong bases, which emerges from the other work of Kishimoto, Samurai 8. Hachimaru is kinda the equivalent of Boruto, a boy who starts out weak, sick and unable to leave his house. He has lived his entire life connected to machines just to stay alive, but deep down he dreams of becoming a powerful samurai, just like the heroes he reads about. And one day his fate changes when a mysterious samurai named Dharma finds him and reveals that he's one of the special warriors chosen to save the universe. Then we have Fudomuyo, the warrior god of the verse, who's similar to Shibai Otsutsuki. But what's interesting is that we are given a lot more intel about this entity in Samurai 8 than the Otsutsuki god in Boruto. Fudomuyo is described as an information aggregation from another universe, not a god in the classical sense. Before his transcendence, he existed in a state of perfect equilibrium where nothing seemed to change, an infinite static perfection. Seeking to disrupt this, he used the edge particles, which are the fundamental building blocks of his universe, to introduce chaos, which created a new universe with imperfections that he viewed as beautiful through the lens of wabi-sabi philosophy, which refers to finding beauty in the imperfect and transient, kinda similar to what was revealed in the special panel from the first volume, which talked about an Otsutsuki god creating the current universe, who himself belonged to another universe which doesn't exist anymore. This means some similarities are definitely present in Naruto's universe, and I will get to that in a moment. This act of creation from Fudomuyo was his initial transcendence, as he evolved from a passive entity into a creator, embedding his essence into the samurai and the universe itself. He also took on students to maintain cosmic balance. Kala was his most powerful and favorite apprentice, a samurai of immense strength who mastered the use of edge particles. As a student, Kala was deeply exposed to Fudomuyo's philosophy of wabi-sabi, which embraces imperfection and transience as the foundation of the universe's beauty. Fudomuyo had disrupted a state of perfect equilibrium in a prior universe by introducing chaos with edge particles, creating a new imperfect universe that he deemed more meaningful. But Kala fundamentally disagreed with this worldview. He believed that true perfection was found in nothingness, a return to the infinite equilibrium that Fudomuyo had abandoned, where no flaws or chaos could exist. This ideological clash ultimately led to Kala betraying Fudomuyo, which led to him seeking to unmake the universe to achieve his own vision of perfection. Later in the story, Hachimaru rises to fulfill his role and becomes the ultimate enemy of Kala. He even attains a warrior god kind of state, which is how Fudomuyo wanted him to defeat Kala. Now when we talk about Boruto and the Fudomuyo of his verse, which is Shibai, there is no way the Otsutsuki deity would need him unless there is a Kala type of threat in the universe which needs to be handled. The intel of the first volume cover has already confirmed the similarity between Fudomuyo and an Otsutsuki god who is behind the creation of Naruto's universe. So what if it's actually Shibai Otsutsuki, and the reason he needs an ultimate singularity to change everything is because that's his last choice, just like Fudomuyo. Unfortunately, Samurai 8 has been discontinued, which means we cannot predict some more plots of Boruto from it, but everything that I explained in this video only hints at one major thing. Momoshiki could actually be Shibai Otsutsuki, and the upcoming chapters would either confirm or debunk this possibility forever. On a final note, there must be some solid reason behind why Kawaki decided to not spare Boruto's life in the flash forward, and the impersonation theory explains why it's like that. Here are some more videos that I'm sure you will enjoy. Make sure to comment down your favorite takes, and I will see you next time.